there's a question I'd like you to consider today. What is the true foundation of lasting success? For decades, we've been told that success comes from mastering the right techniques. Learn to win friends and influence people. Project confidence. Dress for success. Use the right words at the right time. Smile more. Make a powerful first impression. These approaches promise quick results, and sometimes they deliver them. But here's what I've observed. This approach to success is like trying to harvest a crop you never planted. It focuses entirely on the surface, on what others see, while ignoring the roots that actually sustain growth. Let me share a story. A father once came to me, frustrated because his son wasn't performing well in school. "What techniques can I use to motivate him?" he asked. "What should I say? How should I say it?" But as we talked, a different picture emerged. This father rarely spent meaningful time with his son. He was critical, impatient, and his love came with conditions attached to performance. Yet he wanted a technique, quick fix, to solve a problem that was fundamentally about his own character and the relationship he'd built. You see, we cannot talk our way out of problems we've behaved our way into. Throughout human history, there have been two fundamentally different paradigms for achieving success and building meaningful relationships. Understanding the distinction between these two approaches is perhaps the most critical insight anyone can gain in their pursuit of effectiveness and fulfillment. The first paradigm, the character ethic, represents the foundation upon which civilizations have been built for thousands of years. This approach is rooted in timeless principles: integrity, humility, fidelity, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty, and the golden rule. The character ethic teaches us that there are basic principles of effective living that are woven into the fabric of every civilized society and every enduring spiritual tradition. These principles are not invented, they are discovered. They operate whether we're aware of them or not, whether we accept them or not. According to this paradigm, people can only experience true success and enduring happiness as they learn these principles and integrate them into their fundamental character. Success, in this view, is the natural consequence of consistently applying timeless principles to daily life. But something shifted dramatically in the last century. Our focus moved away from these foundational principles toward what can be called the personality ethic. This newer paradigm suggests that success is primarily a function of personality, public image, attitudes, behaviors, skills, and techniques that facilitate human interaction. Rather than focusing on character development, the personality ethic concentrates on what others see and how we can influence their perceptions of us. It comes in two primary forms. First, human and public relations techniques, strategies for how to talk, how to listen, how to influence, how to make powerful first impressions, how to dress for success, and how to project confidence. Second, positive mental attitude approaches, the power of positive thinking, visualization techniques, affirmations, and self-talk strategies designed to reshape our self-perception and project success. Now, this isn't to suggest that personality development, communication skills, or positive thinking have no value. They do. Being able to communicate effectively matters. Having a positive outlook is better than being chronically negative. Learning interpersonal skills can improve relationships. The critical distinction, however, lies in understanding what is primary and what is secondary. The character ethic treats these personality elements as fruits that naturally grow from roots of solid character. The personality ethic, by contrast, treats them as the roots themselves, attempting to cultivate impressive fruits without the sustaining foundation beneath. This difference is not merely philosophical, it has profound practical implications. When we build on the personality ethic alone, we're essentially trying to manipulate perceptions while leaving our actual character unchanged. We're learning scripts and techniques while our fundamental integrity, trustworthiness, and authenticity remain underdeveloped. This approach might work in brief interactions or surface-level relationships, but it inevitably fails when sustained effectiveness is required. People, especially those closest to us, eventually see through the techniques to the character beneath. What we are will always communicate more eloquently than what we say or how skillfully we say it. We live in an age that is fundamentally obsessed with shortcuts, instant gratification, and quick results. We want what we want, and we want it now. We see someone else's success, their thriving business, their strong relationships, their admirable reputation, and we immediately wonder what technique they used, what secret they know, what shortcut we're missing. This mindset has created an entire industry built around the promise of quick fixes, the right seminar, the perfect framework. The killer technique that will transform everything overnight without requiring fundamental change in who we are. But here's the uncomfortable truth that we all intuitively understand, yet constantly try to ignore. There are certain laws in the universe that simply cannot be violated. These are natural laws, as real and unchangeable as the law of gravity. And one of these fundamental laws is that genuine growth and lasting success require time, patience, and process. There are no shortcuts to anywhere worth going. Consider the natural world, where we readily accept this principle. Think about farming. Could a farmer forget to plant in the spring, spend the entire summer playing and neglecting his fields, then rush out in the fall with positive mental attitude and frantic activity expecting to harvest a bountiful crop? Could he stand in his barren field, visualizing abundance, affirming his worthiness of a harvest, using powerful techniques of manifestation, and expect corn to materialize? Of course not. The idea is absurd. We understand immediately that farming follows natural laws and sequential processes. You must prepare the ground, plant the seeds at the right time, cultivate, water, weed, and nurture, and then only then can you harvest. The harvest is the final step of a long process, not something that can be obtained independent of that process. Or consider education. Could you avoid studying all semester, skip most of your classes, ignore the reading, then show up the night before your final exams and cram your way to genuine understanding and excellent grades? Could you skip 3 years of university, then appear at graduation with a positive attitude and some powerful networking techniques, expecting to receive a degree? Again, the answer is obvious. We recognize that education is a process. Knowledge and competence are built gradually through consistent effort over time. There are prerequisite courses for a reason. Certain knowledge must precede other knowledge. You cannot do geometry before arithmetic, advanced physics before basic principles. Yet somehow, when it comes to personal development, interpersonal relationships, and life success, we repeatedly convince ourselves that shortcuts must exist. We think that if we just learn the right technique, read the right book, attend the right seminar, or adopt the right mindset, we can bypass the fundamental process of character development. We want to improve our marriage without improving ourselves. We want to be trusted without becoming trustworthy. We want to lead effectively without developing the character that sustains leadership. We want the harvest without the planting, the degree without the studying, the fruit without the roots. But natural laws operate in the human realm just as they do in agriculture and academics. You cannot violate, ignore, or shortcut them. Preparation must precede performance. Private victories must precede public victories. Character must precede sustainable success. There's a fundamental truth about human interaction that we all recognize from experience, even if we rarely articulate it. What you speak so loudly that people cannot hear what you say. Your character, your essence, your true self communicates constantly through channels far more powerful than words, and no amount of technique, polish, or skill can permanently mask or compensate for what's genuinely happening beneath the surface. Think about the people in your own life whom you trust absolutely. Why do you trust them? Is it because they've mastered certain communication techniques? Is it because they always say the right things at the right time? Is it because they're charming, polished, or persuasive? No, you trust them because over time, through countless interactions and observations, you've come to know their character. You've seen their integrity when no one was watching. You've witnessed their consistency between what they say and what they do. You've experienced their authenticity, their genuine care, their reliability. Your trust is a response to who they fundamentally are, not to what they've learned to project. Now consider the opposite. Think of someone you instinctively don't trust, even though you might struggle to explain exactly why. Perhaps they say all the right things. Perhaps they're smooth, professional, skilled in conversation. Perhaps they smile readily and know how to work a room. Yet something feels off. You sense a disconnection between their words and their essence, between their techniques and their character. That feeling you experience isn't irrational or unfair. It's your intuition detecting incongruence, sensing that the surface doesn't match the substance. This principle becomes even more pronounced in close relationships. You might fool a stranger with technique. You might make a good first impression through careful image management. But you cannot sustain a meaningful relationship, whether in marriage, parenting, friendship, or deep professional partnership, on technique alone. The people closest to us become expert readers of our character. They live with us. They see us in unguarded moments. They observe the gap between our public persona and our private reality. Children especially possess an almost uncanny ability to sense authenticity versus manipulation, substance versus technique. When there's alignment between who we are and what we project, our influence becomes natural and powerful. We don't have to remember what we said to whom, because we're simply being truthful. We don't need techniques to show interest in others, because we're genuinely interested. We don't require scripts for difficult conversations because our intent is honest and our character is solid. People sense this congruence, and they respond to it with trust, openness, and respect. But when technique is masking character weakness, when our words are saying one thing but our being is communicating another, people sense that duplicity. They may not be able to articulate exactly what's wrong. They might even consciously accept our words at face value. But at a deeper level, they feel the incongruence, and it undermines everything we're trying to accomplish. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. Eventually, the structure cannot support itself, and everything comes crashing down. The direction from which we approach change makes all the difference in whether that change will be genuine and lasting or merely cosmetic and temporary. There are fundamentally two directions from which we can attempt to create change in our lives: from the inside out or from the outside in. And understanding this distinction is absolutely critical to achieving any form of meaningful, sustainable success. The inside-out approach begins with self, with the most interior part of who you are. It begins with your paradigms, your character, your motives. It works from the inside, from your core, outward to your relationships, your circumstances, and your results in the world. This approach recognizes a simple but profound sequence. You cannot achieve public victories until you first achieve private victories. You cannot keep commitments to others until you learn to keep commitments to yourself. You cannot build trust in relationships until you become trustworthy. You cannot lead others effectively until you learn to lead yourself. The inside-out approach says that if you want to have a happy marriage, be the kind of person who generates positive energy and sidesteps negative energy rather than focusing on what your spouse is or isn't doing. If you want your children to be responsible yourself and create an environment that supports their development, rather than trying to manipulate their behavior. If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. If you want more freedom in your job, show more responsibility and initiative right where you are. The outside-in approach, by contrast, begins with attempting to change circumstances, other people, or the environment while leaving ourselves fundamentally unchanged. It says that if you have a problem in your marriage, your spouse needs to change. If you're struggling at work, your boss or your colleagues or your company culture needs to be different. If your children aren't performing well, they need to try harder or the school system needs to be better. The outside-in approach is rooted in the belief that what's out there, the circumstances, other people, the breaks you get or don't get, determines your success and happiness. It focuses enormous energy on trying to change things we often cannot control, while neglecting the one thing we absolutely can control: ourselves. The problem with the outside-in approach is that it places our happiness and success at the mercy of external factors. We become reactive rather than proactive, victims rather than agents. We wait for circumstances to change, for other people to behave differently, for opportunities to appear. And while we're waiting, blaming, and trying to manipulate what's outside, we're not doing the hard, foundational work of changing what's inside. We're not examining our own paradigms, strengthening our own character, or taking responsibility for our own contributions to the situations we find ourselves in. The inside-out approach, while more difficult and requiring greater humility, puts the power back where it actually resides within us. It acknowledges that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can absolutely control how we respond. While we cannot force others to change, we can change ourselves, and that change often influences the entire dynamic of our relationships and circumstances in ways that trying to change others never could. There exists a fundamental distinction between principles and values, between natural laws and personal preferences, that shapes everything about how we approach success and effectiveness. Principles are not something we create or invent based on our culture, our preferences, or our circumstances. They are discovered, not manufactured. They are objective realities that exist independently of our awareness of them, our acceptance of them, or our attempts to violate them. They are woven into the fabric of every civilized society throughout history, embedded in every major religious and philosophical tradition, and recognized across cultures as foundational truths about human effectiveness and flourishing. Consider principles like fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity, service, quality, excellence, potential, growth, patience, and nurturing. These are not culturally bound concepts that apply in one society but not another. They are universal. A business built on deception might generate short-term profits, but it cannot sustain long-term success because it violates the principle of honesty. A parent who attempts to control through manipulation rather than influence through genuine relationship might achieve temporary compliance, but cannot build the trust and mutual respect that lead to lasting influence because they're violating principles of dignity and authentic connection. A person who neglects their health might feel fine for months or even years, but eventually the natural consequences of violating principles of physical well-being will manifest because our bodies operate according to natural laws regardless of our beliefs about them. These principles operate with or without our consent. They function like gravity. You can ignore the law of gravity, you can deny it, you can be ignorant of it, but if you step off a building, you will fall. The principle doesn't care about your opinion of it. In the same way, you can violate principles of trust, integrity, and fairness, but you cannot escape the natural consequences that follow. The consequences might be delayed. They might not be immediately obvious, but they are inevitable because principles are laws, not suggestions. This is why technique without principle ultimately fails. You can learn communication techniques, but if you lack genuine respect for the person you're communicating with, they will sense it and your techniques will feel manipulative. You can study negotiation tactics, but if you're operating from a win-lose paradigm rather than genuine win-win thinking, your relationships will suffer even if you occasionally get what you want. You can master time management systems, but if you're not clear on your deepest principles and priorities, you'll merely become more efficient at doing things that don't actually matter. The power of understanding that principles are universal and timeless is that it frees us from constantly reinventing the wheel or searching for new techniques. Instead of asking, "What new method should I try?" we can ask, "What principle am I violating?" Instead of looking for shortcuts, we can align ourselves with principles and trust the process. Instead of trying to manipulate outcomes, we can focus on living in harmony with natural laws and allow the outcomes to take care of themselves. The principles that governed effectiveness 1,000 years ago are the same principles that govern it today and will govern it 1,000 years from now. So we return to the question I posed at the beginning: what is the true foundation of lasting success? The answer, I believe, is now clear. Success that endures, influence that is genuine, relationships that are meaningful. These things cannot be built on technique alone. They require substance. They demand character. They rest on principles that are as real and unchangeable as the laws that govern the natural world. We have a choice before us, each and every day. We can continue down the path of the personality ethic, searching for the next technique, the latest shortcut, the clever method that will give us what we want without requiring us to fundamentally change who we are. This path is seductive because it promises quick results without the difficult work of self-examination and character development. And sometimes it does deliver short-term wins. But these victories are hollow and temporary, like building a house on sand. Or we can choose the path of the character ethic. We can commit to the harder, longer, more rewarding journey of aligning our lives with timeless principles. We can do the private work that must precede public success. We can become people of integrity so that what we are matches what we project. We can accept that there are no shortcuts to anywhere worth going, that real growth follows natural laws and requires patience, consistency, and faith in the process. This path requires humility, the willingness to look honestly at ourselves and acknowledge where our character falls short. It requires courage, the strength to change deeply ingrained habits and paradigms. It requires patience, the acceptance that fundamental change doesn't happen overnight, but it offers something the other path never can: authentic, sustainable effectiveness, real trust, genuine influence, inner peace that doesn't depend on circumstances or other people's opinions. The foundation you build your life upon will determine everything that comes after. Build on principles of character, and you create something that can weather any storm, that grows stronger with time, that influences others not through manipulation but through authentic example. Build on personality and technique alone, and you construct something that looks impressive but cannot sustain its own weight. You cannot have the fruits without the roots. You cannot harvest what you have not planted. You cannot be trusted without being trustworthy. You cannot achieve lasting success on the outside until you achieve it on the inside. The choice is yours, and you make it not once but every day, in every interaction, in every decision about who you will become. Choose wisely. Choose character. Choose principles. Choose the foundation that will support not just success, but significance. Thank you.